So Albert Rios is an award-winning poet and short story writer whose words were shared in an email that I received a couple of weeks ago. And he had written, "We give because someone gave to us. We give because nobody gave to us. We give because giving has changed us. Giving is first and every time hand to hand, mine to yours, yours to mine. You gave me blue and I gave you yellow. Together, we are simple green. You gave me what you did not have and I gave you what I had to give. Together, we made something greater from the difference. Together, we made something greater from the difference." Today, we're going to take a look at ways that this greater can be achieved. And we're going to do so in honor of all of you as we celebrate Volunteer Appreciation Day for this year. There's a lot of information. There's plenty of research data available when it comes to this act of volunteering. The more I read, the more it's made clear for me that volunteering is like a coin. On one side of the coin, you have a perspective of volunteering that's offered from the standpoint of the benefits that are received by others that volunteer to whom volunteer service is offered. Benefits such as just help in the many different ways and many different forms that help can be by being received by any number of worthy causes, by individuals, by the broader, greater community at large. Benefits in the form of organizations who are not able to afford a full staff, and yet they can continue offering and even expanding and broadening their programs or their services or their products that they have due to the presence of their volunteers. And this is especially true in the world of nonprofits, organizations just like us, just like this church that rely so heavily on their volunteers in order that they can continue to thrive, that they can continue to do their work, continue to carry out their mission. And today, many organizations are being significantly impacted by the loss of their volunteers due to the constraints brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. And then you can flip to the other side of the coin, and there you're going to see some benefits too. However, this time, it's from the perspective of that of the volunteer and the benefits they receive, that they receive through the offering of their gifts to a service, or to a cause, or to people, or to this greater community. And this is the side that I want to focus on today and place that focus on all of you. Now, in the course of the reading that I was doing off and on over the last month or two, there were three benefits that just started to bubble up to the top, being seen commonly in all that I was reading. And I could make a case for them from either side of that coin. But as I said, I want to focus on the volunteer. And so these three sort of umbrella benefits that started to appear are connection, leadership, and the greater good. And then I saw an image posted on Facebook once all of the stay home, stay safe orders started to be issued throughout the country. And the image was titled, "Who do I want to be during COVID-19?" Now, regretfully, I did not make a note of who created it, so I can't share that with you. But in it, I saw such a connection to how volunteering could play a role in answering that question. So I'd like to give you an overview of the image itself and the information that it provided, and then connect it to you and your volunteer service. Now, I know that you're probably not going to be able to see much of this writing very clearly at all, but I want to hold up this image so that you can just get an idea of what it looks like and what I'll be speaking to. And so as you can see, it has three smaller circles fitting into one overall larger circle. And each one represents a perspective of who you and I might want to be during this time of COVID-19. Okay. And so in In circle number 1, which was the smallest circle, all it had in it was the question. The question, who do I want to be during COVID-19? And then circle number 2, which was closest to the question, it was labeled the fear zone. It's the fear zone, and it offers certain behaviors in it that reflect the fears that can arise in us at times like this. Fears that get expressed in any number of ways, including things like hoarding of material goods or buying things that we don't even need. We just start buying stuff. It includes expressions of fear and anger, complaining very frequently, getting mad and angry very easily, forwarding, without even thinking, forwarding every email we get about COVID-19 to everybody that's in our email circles. So that's one way that a person can choose to be today. Circle number 3, that was labeled a learning zone, and it was located a bit further out from the question itself. And this one struck me as this is the zone where we just remember to breathe. We just remember to just sit down, take a breath or two, right? And the behaviors in this zone that were listed, they also begin to shift. They shift into things like starting to give up those things that we know we can't control, just releasing them. We stop acting compulsively in ways that hurt us, like compulsive eating or consuming too much news or social media. We begin to identify our emotions, name them, claim them, be with them as they come up. When we're presented with a given situation, we think about it before we act or react to it. We begin to evaluate all the information we're receiving. We start to evaluate it to see first and foremost, is this accurate? Is this even true? So that we don't contribute to the spreading of falsehoods. And maybe most importantly, it's in this learning zone that we start to recognize that for the most part, we are all just trying to do the best we can. And so being willing to learn more about our current situation, learn more about ourselves in relationship to the current situation, that's another possible answer as to who we want to be. And then lastly, there was circle number 4, and it was the one furthest away from the question itself. And it was labeled the growth zone. The growth zone. And it was in this circle that I saw how it spoke to the benefits received by someone who volunteers. And I saw how easily they could be related to those 3 areas of connection and leadership and greater good. And I saw how easily they related to you, to your volunteer service here at the church as well as beyond this church. And how maybe if I would remind you of them today, it might support you as you craft your answer to the question and do so from this circle of growth. And so let's start with connection. Of course, in our context today, this is all about relationships, creating them, nurturing them, maintaining and strengthening them, and of course, appreciating them. I think that the last 2 months have taken us to new levels of understanding as to how much connection really means to us and how much we miss those ones that we would like to have, in person with other people. But what I think we've been learning during these last couple of months and learning in new ways is that while our preference might be to be physically present to someone else, being in person is not a requirement for connection. And so with that in mind, the statements from the image that were in this growth zone of who we want to be today pertaining to connection, there were 2 of them. One said, I think of others and see how to help them. And the other said, I am empathetic with myself and with others. So how have I seen you thinking of others, seeing how you can help them? Well, you show up here on Sunday mornings. You show up here for this service. You think about your spiritual community. You think about your spiritual family, and you show up to be with one another. And I believe that each time every one of you chooses to make this connection, each of you is helping those around you. And if you envision that, it's another circle. It's an unbroken circle, a link to which everybody is a part of and connected to. Another way, a few weeks ago, Joanne Davis, our board president, she reminded all of us of the connection that we had established a year or more ago now to make sure that we acknowledged birthdays every month, a connection that she asked that we continue even in this virtual platform. And rumor has it that when everything is all safe once again, she's going to bake the most humongous cake to make up for all of the time that we will have been apart. And actually, I just made up that rumor, so feel free to spread it directly in her direction, okay? And then we've got connecting via empathy. First, empathy towards others. Well, our dear friend June Neal, congregant, she's been wonderfully overwhelmed by all of the phone calls that she's been receiving since she sustained her fall a couple of weeks back. Kelly Lambert, I know Kelly's with us today. He recently fell and broke his hand while at work. And he's one of our frontline people. You all know that. And just on Facebook alone, over 100 people have connected with him, offering him their prayers and their support, and more than 20 of them are you. We currently have 9 people in this congregation. They're making phone calls to everybody in our current directory, just reaching out, making a connection to say hello, to just offer that empathetic ear, to see if there's anything that anyone might need that we might be able to help with in some way. Now, one of those 8 people, they're not a volunteer, that's me, but the other 8, they are volunteers. They're members of our board of trustees and members of our prayer chaplain team. And then the statement said there's empathy shown towards yourself as well. And what I like to call, keeping yourself on your list, offering yourself that compassion and understanding. And I know that some of you are making sure that you stay connected with 12-step groups or your personal sacred circles, being gentle with yourselves and reaching out as needed. We also have 2 congregants who, before COVID-19 entered our lives, they felt drawn into a deeper connection with the church. And so they entered onto the membership pathway. And when we had to suspend all of the activities at the church, that meant we were suspending classes at the church. But they didn't want to suspend the creation of this connection, this special connection that their hearts were being drawn to. They kept their heart's desires on their own list, and we talked about it, and they said, yes, we'll just go online. Let's continue. And the same thing for our prayer chaplain team. They all had doubts about moving this year's training program onto a virtual platform because they knew the power of connection that they had experienced with one another, some of them for more than 7 years now, and how that had grown, and they weren't sure that could be achieved in an online setting. But keeping themselves on their list, not having any connection at all with the training program this year just wasn't an option for them. So they too willingly went online. And if you ask any one of them, they can share with you, if they choose, some very powerful stories of the depth of connection that they created this year and experienced for themselves as a collective group. And know that sacredness, it's getting passed on to each and every one of you every time they stand in prayerful support with you. So now let's go to the second benefit to a volunteer, that of leadership. Now here's how our growth zone circle spoke of leadership. It noted that it's in this zone that you keep a happy emotional state and spread hope. You look for a way to adapt to new changes, and you practice quietude, patience, relationships, and creativity. I think this is the place where you get reminded of all you learned in the previous circle, in that previous zone, because leaders are still human. Leaders are not always happy or in happy emotional states. Sometimes they lose sight of their own hope. They're not always flexible and patient and sources of unlimited creativity 100% of the time. But when someone is a leader, they know how to get themselves back on course. They quickly call upon what they have learned, and they begin applying it to the given situation, whatever is in front of them, trying to or succeeding in throwing them off center. See, leaders do this because part of leadership is modeling it for others, being examples of it for others, inspiring others, being a source of hope for others, mentoring others, those who feel that they're ready to move from one zone to another in their own lives. And since COVID-19's arrival, I have seen and or heard about all of these things being put into action through so many of you. One of our prayer chaplains, Sheila McCrae, she arranged for a conference call of prayer for the prayer chaplain team, and she invited me into it as well. This was a recognition of the challenges we were beginning to experience and the importance of keeping prayer at the forefront of everything that we do. I've heard stories of how some of you have stepped in to help others become more comfortable, get better acquainted with online platforms so that they could more easily be present to and partake in, participate in the Sunday services and other things that we are offering. From the very beginning of this current situation, Carol Purcell, Roland Woodring, they began researching ways to try and add music into these platforms in ways that could be heard clearly and so forth. And I'll say a little bit more about that at the end of the service today. And also, every week, if you open up our weekly e-news, you'll see a multitude of musical resources. Music is a healer. Music can lift spirits so easily. And there are concerts listed. There are playlists, all from New Thought artists. And Carol's the one who started finding those things and making sure that she sent them on to Meg so that it could get put into the e-news every single week for you. Then there's Molly DeBell, one of our current board members. In our monthly meeting a couple of weeks ago, she was the one who suggested that we consider a volunteer spring cleanup out at the church grounds. See, leadership on the board, it not only involves being aware of the church's finances, but also offering creative ways to best manage them, especially in times we're moving through right now. And we offered her suggestion last week during the service, and immediately the chat room filled up with 13 of you saying yes, volunteering your services to help out, giving your name, your contact information, the days you're available. See, that's going to help save this church about $700 or more in expenses. For a long time now, we've had a midweek coffee group meeting Wednesday mornings. And we've also had our gathering group meeting for the last couple of years, twice a month. And the closing of the church, the closing of the local coffee houses could have stopped those groups, but they weren't stopped, and they actually have expanded. See, Roger Herzberger, he's coordinating the gathering, and he had just finished scheduling out 2 or 3 months worth of meetings, both at the church and at the local library, when both organizations had to shut their doors. But Roger came to me and says, I'll be happy to go to Zoom. I'll be happy to be the one who creates the meetings, who sends the invitations out, who maintains the email listing of anybody who wants to participate. And Brooke Borgerson Gray, she did the same thing for the coffee sessions. She immediately stepped up, said, hey, I'm on Zoom for a lot of different things. I can do this. I'll be happy to do this. Give me your name. I'll get you on the list. See, these groups, when they come together, some people will show up and their emotions will be raw, and the other ones are there to offer the hope. See, it's where sharing takes place, where support and creative ideas can be shared for all of the adapting that we're being asked to do. There is an abundance of leadership in this ministry, and certainly not only as it relates to this current situation that we're moving through. We've had for a long time now 25 volunteer teams. Every single one of them has a leader, a volunteer team leader. We have individuals like Kay, she's with us today, who just comes in. She takes care of our database. She's all maintain the database. I'll take care of the lending library. And Tim Siva, when we did the kitchen, he took the lead, and he also said that he would oversee making sure that our water softener thing that needs to have proper maintenance done to it every month is taken care of, so that the investment continues to benefit all of us. An abundance of leadership, to be sure. There was a quote that I saw used in our Record Eagle newspaper this last summer, and it was included in some commentary offered by a member of our local community in a letter they wrote to the op-ed section of the paper. And I've seen this quote online, and it has been attributed to at least 10 different people. So I have no idea who first said these words, but it reads, "Volunteering is the ultimate exercise in democracy. You vote in elections once a year, but when you volunteer, you vote every day about the kind of community you want to live in." And this spoke to me as it relates to the third benefit of volunteering, that of the greater good. And the comments offered in our growth zone of the circle were, "I live in the present and focus on the future, and I make my talents available to those who need them." Now, that first statement, I think it speaks so clearly to so many wonderful attributes and personal beliefs of someone. Because if someone honestly, authentically says that I live in the present moment, whatever that present moment is, and keeps your focus on the go forward, a future that could be 3 steps in front of you or much longer. If you can do that honestly, authentically, then I think that you are a living, breathing example of things like spiritual consciousness, awareness, groundedness, acceptance, hope, faith, possibility, imagination, vision, creativity, willingness, expectation, anticipation. And the second statement is one that is very clear, that it is unconditional in nature. Because it says that whoever could benefit, whoever could be lifted up by a talent that you have, a talent that you have to offer, you just give it to them, period. Doesn't matter who they are or where they're from, what they look like, how they worship, if they worship. And these two statements together, I think, sum up how this congregational family, each and every one of you and everyone who's been a part of it for the last 37 years, those two statements being expressed by you, that's how you've been casting your votes for the community that you wanted to create. A spiritual community where the greater good is always a part of the equation, whether it's for the greater good of the ministry or the greater good for something so much bigger than the ministry. And there's also a greater good that we talk about a lot in this community. And it's the greater good that's always coming forth through Spirit. That greater good that we can't always see. Sometimes it won't be for us to see. But it's one that we trust and hold on to our faith, knowing that it is always at work. And so as you sit with our question today, how do I want to be during COVID-19? I do hope that you will take to heart everything that I've offered today, everything that I've shared about how I know so many others see you to be. Do that first, and then answer the question for yourself. And there's just one more thing I want to say today. It's actually a third statement that was included in this growth zone. Now, I know it's one that I know that you do it, you know it, you understand it, you express it all the time, but it's one that I wanted to reserve just for myself today to say to each and every one of you. And so from my heart to yours, I thank you and I appreciate you. I thank you and I appreciate you for all that you give to me, all that you give to each other, all that you give to this ministry, and all that you give far beyond our walls, not only to the greater community, but to our greater world. And so my love and blessings to each and every one of you today. And God bless you. That's always one of my favorite lessons to offer every year, when I can just say how much you all mean to me, and how much I appreciate everything that you do in your volunteer service to this church. And so now we move into our time of offering for this Sunday. And for this Sunday, we have the opportunity to bless our generosity check for this month. This is going to go to Unity Worldwide Ministries. And I want you to know just how very much that organization has been supporting all of us, ministers as well as ministries, as we're moving through this time. There are so many resources, on their website that are helping to help us navigate through these different times that we find ourselves in. And so I would really ask that you hold a special place in your hearts for them this morning and all that they're doing in support of us as we bless our offerings today. And so if you have your offering in your hands there, feel free to just hold it together with ones that I'm holding here. If you're going to go online, just hold that offering in your hearts. And so we know that every gift that's given from the heart has the power to transform lives. And so, grounded in that truth, I offer for all of us our offertory blessing for today. God is my source, and I give generously of my abundance in all forms. I live a consciousness of prosperity, and I joyfully step into the flow of giving and receiving. I believe that every moment offers a gift, one to give or one to receive. I give thanks for the prosperity in my life and celebrate the unlimited possibilities present in every moment. And so it is. Amen.